This bulb hunting adventure started off with an early AM departure from Tyler, Texas for a 6 a.m. breakfast appointment in College Station, where I met my bulb hunting companion for the day as we headed off to Washington County in the heart of Texas in pursuit of the Crinum Mrs. James Hendry at an old Victorian restored home. It's part of the state where you see the Lone Star on many barns and the Texas flag on many porches. And you're looking at a clump or a few bulbs of Crinum Mrs. James Hendry. So without much further ado, here are some comments.
Probably one of the largest stands of Mrs. James Hendry. It's a Crinum variety that I've ever seen. And they all came out really nice. It's well-prepared soil. What's nice about the Mrs. James Hendry, and this is one of the largest specimens I've seen, it's a great specimen, but it blooms 4 to 6 times throughout the summer, starting in the spring and ending in the fall. And they're obviously a really robust plant, but the foliage stays fairly clean compared to a lot of other varieties. And this variety is blooming right now, and it's going to be over 100 degrees.
It was hot that day, but the heat almost seemed to release an intensity of fragrance that just isn't matched in other crinums. And it's not too overbearing, but it's definitely not weak. And the flowers hadn't lost any form.
The other nice thing about the flowers is that they all stand up straight and open up straight. So you don't have them flopping over and dying at different times. They all open up at once and they all bloom at once. The petals curl back, and you have a really nice blush bloom that is striking in your garden. The Crinum Mrs. James Hendry is quite possibly one of the finest Crinum selections that exist on the market. It starts blooming in early spring and blooms till late fall. And it blooms about 4 to 6 times, and that's probably even an understatement in the garden. In a good garden setting with well-prepared soil and moisture, you might even see 8 or 10. The bulbs grow big, they multiply fast, and it's a wonderful addition to any garden.
I could have rambled on and on, I'm sure, about it, but I thought I would take a moment to tour you around the garden. This is one of the clumps that was blooming. To the left, there was another clump of crinums, and that's Crinum puellii. It's a little bit messy down below, but if there's somebody living there full time, it's not much of a chore to just remove some of that dead foliage every once in a while. This little entrance to their backyard was flanked to the left and right by Mrs. James Hendry. The other clump isn't blooming. Across the yard, or the landscape, is a typical Central Texas scene with live oaks, a barn, and a holding pond or a tank, as some people call it in the area, in the background. And then on the fence post, you are looking at a bluebird box. And it's really popular to have lots of bluebird boxes out there, and most of them are filled with bluebirds. That's a close-up of the flowers. You can see the blush color and how most of them are opened up.
This is about the size bloom you can expect in August time in Texas. And I could smell this as I was walking around the corner before I even saw it. And so on this one in particular, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blooms on it. And there are more bloom stalks coming up out of the clump.
So we dug the rest of the bulbs and we replanted the bulbs, bloom-sized bulbs in the garden. And that was took all morning. And then it got really hot. I had to travel back to College Station, but then back out here to Central Texas next night for a nice evening at another little cottage that was maybe 10 minutes away. You can see the standing seam roof, and it's a late 1800s a home that's been restored. And the reason that all the clouds are in the background and the red sky was that the tropical storm, which was supposed to be a big, terrible hurricane, had come through and dropped some rain on the area, and it made for a pretty sunset and a nice evening.